Good morning, Banquet. How you doing? Okay, it's better now. Yeah, okay. It's okay. It's foggy. It's true. I don't know what to do. It's much sharper. Yeah, it's good. I'm good. I had an interesting week. There's a uh, a connection who I met over the summer. He's a really nice guy named, and he had just made a short film, and I sent him some of the novel, and we connected, and he's he became part of this community called Do Not Research, which has some overlap with a lot of people in Ridgewood. I found out that the boyfriend of one of the people from the soccer team, who is this guy who wrote a novel and who I connected with towards the end of the season, that he was published on there. This boy told me that his film's going to be on there, and he recommended that I check it out, and he said it might be a good place for the writing. And I was confused about it. I had to wait in a little bit, but it's it's a really it's been fascinating me the whole week. I found this one post that was like it was like four of my favorite college courses boiled down into like an hour of essential theory, and it was organized as like a meme that was like extremely long. So it's like a huge meme that went down like I don't know the equivalent of like 6 pages online or something like that. And it was fascinating. It was a really elegant summation of ideas that I haven't had anyone to talk to about since I left school, but that were like things that were like my first like adult passion was like in high school when I became politically radicalized and I would just get into arguments with people all the time. But for the most part, I was totally alone because I didn't know how to use the internet. And it was cool to go back on this thing and see that like people had been thinking about the same thing, but they had also been like designing ways to think about it. And I found it so compelling. I don't know I don't know how to put it, but it seems to me it's like the closest thing to a religious community that I've like found online. And I just got really excited about it. It's a I don't know I don't really know how to put it, but when I left college, I had a lot of like radical ideas that I needed to dial back in order to like consume movies and also to read extensively because I had kind of developed sort of like a an allergy to anything that was representationally complex, and so I was just very wary of a lot of things. And in order to like study and I don't know just better myself and expand how I was thinking about things, I had to like really kind of forget politics entirely. And uh, one thing about that I'm not really sure, but just a lot of my relationships became a lot more precarious, I think. But well, when I became radicalized, I lost like all of my close friends around me in school because I just told them to stop making like homophobic and racist jokes and stuff like that. So I lost all those friends, and then I made like new politically radical friends in school, and then I basically just distanced myself from them because I realized I couldn't consume art and think critically about art anymore around them, and around the friends that I made in college, around new friends. But this group of people, the community is run by a visual artist who is also someone who studies like online political communities, and the research that he's done is incredible. I mean, he has this book of 20 interviews where he's interviewing like kids who from like just before Trump's election and through his presidency, teenagers who became extremely radicalized online and were making memes about just kind of the projections of what the future might be like. He interviewed 20 of these kids, like 10 from the left and 10 from the right, and their ideas on the future are just they're insane. They're totally absurd, but they're kind of like they're the imaginative dimension of them is so unbounded. It's very it's interesting. It's like a lot of anxiety and a lot of hope, but visualized. Anyway, I've just been looking into this stuff, and I I don't know. It's like I admire these people a lot, and I've really struggled to approach like any community since I left school without like I've had a ton of skepticism about it, and I've also I think primarily been doing it just because I want like some kind of power that I think will translate into like a social ease. But as I'm observing this community and how it's interacting, it really is it has like a lot of the communally minded kind of positive non-nihilistic ideas that I thought I believed in when I became sort of more radicalized in high school. So what I'm trying to say is that like I feel like I've had a glimpse this week into like a way to I don't know some kind of harmony or something. It's been really nice. I mean these are really impressive minds. Like they didn't burn out from their beliefs earlier on. They carried them through in this really inspiring way to me. So it's been on my mind a lot. Well, I was intolerant. I was totally intolerant. I was intolerant of like every way that I was communicating with like people who I'd known since I was really young. Like I was intolerant. I was interrupting their train of thought, and I also told them I didn't need their company anymore. And I remember like they all came over one time, and they were just like, we love you. We're your best friends. We don't want you out of our life, but we need you to stop like doing this. And I told them like, I don't care. Go, leave. I don't give a shit. And also, what you're doing is wrong. And I encourage you to like, search yourself and stop it. And maybe then, but I told them I don't care. And I think that like our views of radicalism don't include like a left radicalism because we're American, we are scared of communism and stuff like that. I don't think I'm like that. I don't think I'm like that at all. But certainly the most compelling people I studied with in school were totally left radicals, and that's why they lived in universities because that's like where they lived. My favorite professor in school, he was like we were studying like his course called What is History, and we read um, all of these like core Western philosophical texts, trying to understand how the West understands itself in history. But he would tell us sometimes just point blank. He would say like, "I'm teaching you these things. I'm teaching you about philosophy, but my end goal is, I hope that you will destroy the bourgeois cultural order that is primarily Judeo-Christian." He said, "I hope you will destroy that because if you don't, climate change is going to kill us all." And he was like, "That's the primary goal of my teaching." And I remember I remember turning to like my classmates in the course, and it was a small room, and they were just like, "What the fuck is this guy saying?" But I was like, "That is incredibly inspiring." Like I was like, "That's amazing. Like how did he get close enough to just be able to say that?" And he didn't get fired either. I mean, it was like this is a tenured guy. I mean, it was really impressive. But I don't know. I've had like a kind of it feels like a reconnection with my roots, and it's nice. It's been a passionate week for that reason. Yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's not. I don't even think that's the image that I have of those people. But the I don't know. I guess probably why this is so compelling to me is because like I um I I think like I'm just as intolerant as I ever was. Like I have I just don't have any ability to accommodate like very basic things about new communities that orbit and that I'm constantly on the verge of joining. And what usually expresses itself in group settings versus, when I'm hanging out with one person and then that person brings me in, it's just like total like affective withdrawal and like unwillingness to uh, engage with like a kind of like an emotional framework about how to see the world. And it just keeps on happening. Like I just keep on ejecting from different places, and then spending time on my own and thinking like, am I insane? Like, no, I'm able to like get stuff done, and like I'm passionate about things, and I'm writing something that's based on ideals that I have that aren't incoherent or like totally violent. Like, but like every time I try and interact with other people, I don't seem to be able to communicate that. And even when I scratch at the surface of it, it often seems to them like I'm insulting them or being controversial on purpose. And I just got so excited this week about a group of people who seem to be, I don't know, not only smart enough, but just like constantly improving and creating nuances into their political, ideological, aesthetic framework that it just, strengthens them and allows them to talk about what they care about, as opposed to just like more surface, more and more superficiality. And to me, that's like so appealing. And it was cool because I felt like it aligned with parts of my development, I guess. I felt hopeful. I don't know. I felt really hopeful. I'm sure that there's like petty infighting, in any place. That's just that's just a basic quality of what community is. But I don't know. I remember there's this thing said. It was like shortly after I moved in, and she was talking about the music and art scene that she's a part of. And she said you care about studying and bettering yourself and your craft and things like that, and you're on like a kind of a solo journey doing your thing. She's like, the rest of us, she's like, it's just a popularity contest, and I'm mad that I'm not winning it, and that's just how I see things. And I was like blown away. I was like, are you a real person? Like, is this really true? And she's like, this is the way people see it. Like, this is the way it is. And I was like, wow. Like, I don't know. It made me nauseous or something. But it was also very pragmatic, and it was just clear eyed. But I was like, God, no. Like, that's bad. That's no good. That must have been like August of living there. It must have been like like a little bit after I got out of the ward. It was like, I don't know, 8, 9 months until COVID, and then goodbye. I don't know. I don't know what I figured out with her, but probably the physical act of leaving was about as much figuring out I needed to do. Yeah, well, okay, that's what I'm saying is that I look at something that doesn't give me the fight or flight, you know, uh, instinct, and that's pretty cool. That's what I sent me. He was just like, "Do you know about this?" I was like, "No, what is it?" He's like, "Go there, look at it." So I looked at it. I looked at the people who ran it, and there's two kind of like new in the scene people, and then there's like an older person who's a visual artist and also did like the interviews book and did this other thing about like political Instagram, and he just has like a ton of content. So and he also has like links to many other people. So uh, I just spent like a lot of time in his bubble. I think a lot of them live in Ridgewood, and then uh, probably just mostly in the city. I mean, I'm sure that they're all around the country, but this seems like it's based in New York City. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is that the one of the people who I met through the soccer thing and through the community center is already. I think just that it's it's probably like a lot of people who either went to grad school or didn't want to go to grad school because they felt that their aesthetic or their research interest or their politics or whatever it was were not going to be supported or get funding from that route. So it's like a lot of like it's just like a lot of independent research and writing and visual art and things like that. Um, I don't think it's like conveys itself as like a avant-garde scene, but I think it probably has a lot of overlap with that. It feels that way to me too. Yeah, I've only met maybe one of them. It's kind of funny, isn't it? I mean, it's like I don't know. I get the sense that so I went to a movie at the community center on Wednesday, and it was a it's a very good and challenging film, and there was a bit of discussion afterwards, and it was just like I don't know. I felt like people of that ilk were there, but I went with and this someone else that she knew came, and we were just discussing afterwards, and there was this person who was basically playing like the ultimate devil's advocate to the movie, and like seemed to like understand that that's what she was doing. Like she was saying provocative things in a way to be like, does this movie even deserve to exist, kind of thing. And it was just like polemics and like something I was just like, I'm not gonna take the bait because you're gonna switch in a second because you're not invested in this. You're just trying to get a rise. But so I went with had like a she kind of had like a panic attack. She like said one thing and then she immediately left and she was like, come outside and like let's leave. I went out and I was like that person was really kind of fascinating, and like I could tell that she was like it was a form of play, but it was kind of like a weird high stakes political play that she was doing because it was like she would say this thing and then she would immediately just like revise and take another ultimatum, make another ultimatum, and then just go from there. And she seemed crazy, but it's like had a panic attack because she was like I don't know how people are taking what I'm saying there. Like I don't know. It's like not clear to me, and it makes me freak out because I don't know what their goal is. I was like, oh, that's a really good way to describe how I feel. Like sometimes when I go places with you. I was like, I was like the sense of the pressure of alienation you're feeling right now, and just like the sense of like, what are the morals of these people around me? I was like, I feel that way all the time. I feel that way all the time, and it's cool to see it reflected. And I'm sorry, but it's like I was like, it's cool to see it feel that way because it's interesting. And I took that with me, and I was like, wow, I should go to this place more often. It was funny. Yeah, it was a good litmus test. No, those are pretty great. If I could be there all day, I would, but I just don't even have the strength for it. I think that, yeah, my own thoughts are fabulous. I love that space. My own thoughts are amazing. I love them. I love them dearly. They need like food and they need they're hungry for social contact as well, and I can't feed them that on my own. I'm sorry. If only. Um, I had okay. This is another funny thing that happened this week is that so
Yeah.
Kave is doing a new podcast where it's called 52 Conversations I want to have I want to have with you before we both die. And I suggested to him that he interview Stefan because Stefan is always saying that he's going to kill himself. And Kave was like, "That's a great idea. It'll be the first one." And so he did this thing, and uh, I heard because Stefan is like spamming my phone now with kind of random things that it went terribly. They both did coke, and it just was like too personal and kind of awkward. But I talked to Kavi about it, and Kavi was like, "I brought you up in this thing," and I was like, "Oh, that's fascinating." And he was like, "Do you want to listen to it and give me some feedback on how to make it less boring? Because it's like right now it's like too long and stuff like that." So I listened to it, and uh, Kave at like multiple points, he's talking to Stefan, and he's like Stefan, I just don't believe that. Like it's not true that no one is willing to be your friend. He's like Arrow's willing to be your friend and hang out with you, and he was like Arrow's awesome, like Arrow's smart, Arrow's kind, Arrow's so cool, and Stefan was just like no, no, Arrow's not that, and Kaveh was like Arrow's tried to like Arrow compared you to Stephen Dedalus from Ulysses, like Arrow's really nice and sees you in this great way, and Stefan was like, I don't even know what that means. Like I didn't read Ulysses, all this kind of thing. And then Kavi's like, Arrow tried to keep you from killing yourself. Like Arrow tried to talk you down from these things. And Stefan said, she didn't try anything. She never tried anything. I'm listening to it, and I was like, wow, I think he like erased me from his mind. It was like a really weird meta like look into kind of like I don't even know. Yeah, he just like he disordered. I don't know what we experienced, as far as I remember it, because I remember having, good times with him and enjoying the time that we spent together and things like that. But um, he was going on and he was talking about how he's borderline, and then he did some coke and he became more charismatic, and he was explaining that that no matter how many times people will try and explain or help him out of his mental binds, once he's out of one mental bind, he'll go back and he'll just create a whole new set of symptoms. And he's aware of the fact that he can do this and that he does it. And he's done it with everyone around him, and he said that's the reason people always leave him. And I was like, wow, that's pretty clear. This is a person who I had a lot of hang-ups on for years, because you know, I just loved him. I couldn't help it. I thought he was a great person, and I loved him. And
Yeah.
uh, uh, it gave me kind of like a stunning amount of clarity about why, I don't know, he doesn't want to be involved, or he doesn't. It was just it was just hopelessness. If I'm feeling hope right now, it was just like concrete hopelessness, like concrete, well defended hopelessness. Um, and I listened to all of it, and it was bizarre. It was really funny
Mm.
too, and Kabe comes off just hilarious. I don't know if they'll release it. I hope they do. It's really interesting stuff. I was just sort of staring into like a vacuum of comprehension that would just get like shot at me every once in a while. Somehow it was more entertaining than it was rough, but it was like I was like, I don't know. It amazed me. It amazed me that you could pour so much love into something, or so much care, so much time, so much presence, and it could just uh, I don't know. It's like you put it on Mars or something. It just dies. It just like fades away.
Mm.
So inhospitable. I don't know what that did to me, but it was crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy that Kave is just the prism through which I see these things. Like, he gives me access to them, um, without like a plan in mind. But it just happens to be. Kave's community is interesting. It's the most atomized one I've ever belonged to. It's like so many people are there, but
Mm.
it's like built on isolation. Strange. I love that man. He's as brilliant as he is dumb. That's like the secret to it. Is like the one who's able to play you know both ends of the piano, and it doesn't sound like garbage. I mean, he's really
Yeah.
like he's a great man. I love that man. I think that I wish a lot of the time that it was less just one person on one. In a way, it's like the ideal community for me, because it's just like you go and you like Zoom with him, or you go to his house and it's just you two, and you're just working
Mm.
or you're hanging out, and that's like it. But
Yeah.
that there's like 20, sometimes 30 people around him that are also doing this, and it's actually another person who works with him, like someone
Mm.
who I know, and I also know Kave, and that's a positive thing. But like, I often wish that you know it wasn't this incredible hierarchy of one person who knows all these people, and everyone who knows
Mm.
one person. If it was a more balanced thing, that would be cool. Um, but yeah, no, I don't regret knowing that man. I mean, he's great, but it definitely is weird, these things that are going on. No, I don't think he will. He just needs to be aware that, I mean, it's basically they're podcasts, and so everyone's primed to listen to
Yeah.
podcasts anyway. But this is like a podcast where it starts with a question, like, so you're suicidal, like, let's talk about that. You won't usually have two people who are doing that, and the one person doesn't really know how they're getting into it. It's like, yeah, it's a wonderful encounter. But he's a perfectionist, and if it's sloppy, he probably won't release it, but he should, because I don't know. It's just a podcast at the end of the day. It's not like a film that goes to a festival, but who knows what I'll do with it. I mean, yeah, it's just Stefan reminds me of my dad. This is kind of this terminal melancholic, and so like I just grew up having those conversations, like going to school. That was like what I would talk about first thing in the morning, was like, don't kill yourself. Let's brainstorm ways for you to like not kill yourself, or like eliminate the conditions that force you to think that way. And it's a breath of fresh air for me to just listen to it, because it may not seem like the normal thing, but for me, it was literally the normal thing. It was just the way that I spoke to, like, the closest person to me in my life for years, and like is still the preferred method of communication. So, it has like a huge cache of normality in my spirit that is unreflected utterly anywhere else except for a place like this. So, I guess that's why I'm here. The intersection of here that is the spaces we're talking about right now. That includes all these things. I could hear you, but the video's paused. I don't know. It's that time. It's a good week. Okay. Okay. Take care.